This is part 2 of chapter 5. The Cherokee in their large territory of the South became the sufferers of the extermination form of settler warfare. Meanwhile, the U.S. government feigned support through treaties. John Sever led cessation efforts by settler squatters from Carolina and the U.S. He wanted to develop a new country through settler ranger warfare. He's later applauded and becomes a U.S. representative and the governor of Tennessee. Despite resistance, with some support from Muskogeans and Shawnee, the settler militias used the scorched earth and harvest burning practices against the Cherokee. This forced refugee status on Cherokee in places like Tennessee and North Carolina. The squatter settlers illegitimately served the U.S. government's interests in diminishing indigenous presence in efforts to develop the Old Southwest. Muskogee resistance to squatters in the Southeast had some interesting facets. Some Muskogeans allied with the Spanish of Florida. Some also maintained a relationship with white trading posts. Thus, a new class of indigenous groups developed to a near elite status as they co-opted and established new plantations. However, Muskogean traditionalists resisted settler intrusion of squatters. They allied with Shawnee to drive them out of Georgia and Tennessee. The loot, burn, and kill methodology is employed by the likes of Georgia militia. Again, a seasoned Indian killer, Elijah Clark, attempts a separative republic, but is quelled by Georgia state authorities. And the last region in this chapter is the Mississippi area. The actions in Ohio Valley and Southeast overlap in this time period. A web of interaction between the U.S., former colonies, British, and the French becomes apparent. In between all of this are the indigenous culture groups and settler militias. Student history majors can probably better relate the complex intricacies of the War of 1812 to 15 in this area. Nevertheless, this region is marked by large slave plantations. As previously mentioned, settlers struggled with little success to become landholders in each new frontier. In turn, the government economy benefited from selling former indigenous lands. The U.S. held the settler wars at bay against the indigenous, since the economy benefited from the slave plantations and land sales. The settlers felt alienated, just as they had with the British, until Andrew Jackson included the regular army in warring and killing of the Muskogeans and Creeks. Our author summarizes how Tecumseh-led alliance and the Muskogee Nation's power was reduced by genocidal war and forced removal. She further relates conquest was not achieved by defeating the British, but by eliminating indigenous control. I encourage students to carefully read the last 2 chapters of the book, the chapter, wherein Dunbar Ortiz brings awareness of how the way of war becomes standardized. It is used to kill indigenous in the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864, Wounded Knee in 1890, and other annihilations. The last paragraph reveals how this American way of war is used in the Civil War of Philippines Cuba, Central America, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan.